Welcome to Law Excellence Hindu News Analysis. Today we are going to cover these 5 topics that are appearing in the Hindu newspaper, which can be important from the perspective of both prelims and mains examination of UPSC. Now coming to the first article of the day. Now this article is saying that average household spending rose 3.5% through August 2023, July 2024. It shows government survey. Now this is the context of the news. Now the context of the news is saying that now recently conducted household consumption expenditure survey reported a 3.5% rise in the per capita household spending, okay, for the year 2023-2024. Now this indicates that economic prosperity, decline in the consumption inequality, okay, decline in the consumption inequality. And this article I also highlighted that there is reduction in gap of urban and rural poverty. That means urban and rural spending. Okay. Now this article is important from the examination perspective, mainly from the mains perspective. In GS paper 3, there is syllabus topic economic development. Previously, there is a mains question regarding the household savings. Now, how savings can lead to the capital infrastructure and all those things. Okay. And not only that, you may have heard about this, private final consumption expenditure in GDP calculation, right? Now, in terms of GDP, this constitutes almost 55 to 60% of India's GDP is private final consumption expenditure. Now, what is the private final consumption expenditure? That is, but the expenditure that is, conducted by the people like you and me. Like now, this is what the household spending also comes under it. So, increasing the household, spending is also contributing to this private final consumption expenditure. So, increasing of these spending means that nothing but, narrowing the gap between urban and rural spending, increasing the income and all those things. Now, which is a very good sign. Okay. Now, this article also highlighted that some urban-rural expenditure trends. Now, what is that? See, this article is saying the rural monthly per capita expenditure is rose by 3.53%. Okay, while urban monthly per capita expenditure rose by 3.48%. So overall, it is a very good trend. That is what saying. Another important thing that is mentioned in this article is the spending for the non-food items is increased. Now, this is also one of the very good sign, because it is being said that when there is increase in the expenditure for non-food items, that means that the needs for the food is already met to some extent, so that they are now focusing on the things like education, health, transport, and other lifestyle things. So this also indicates that some of the at some level improvement in the quality of life. Okay. Now, because of these trends, it is also seen that there is a shift in consumption patterns also. Okay, shift in consumption patterns. Now, mainly this article is saying that there is decline in the spending on the edible oils. Especially one of the reason can be this because of the high food inflation and all those things, and also because of the health conscious that these days everyone is having. Okay, in that way there is to some extent there is a reduced food expenditure. Okay, that is what's saying. Okay, now this is important, and in examination also you can use, even it may not directly ask, you can use in the questions like poverty assessment, because surveys like this are very important in assessing the consumer price index, poverty estimates, okay, inflation management, to understand the rural urban dynamics, policy framing and all those things. Okay, whenever any question regarding the economic development, savings, investment, all those things, household savings are very important. Okay, that is what the thing. Now, these are the things mentioned in this article. Remember certain type of data that is mentioned in this article. For example, this data is mentioned that in this article is non-food items constitutes around 60% in urban areas and 53% in the rural areas in their household spending monthly. Okay, some things like this. Okay, now rise in the 3.53% of household monthly expenditure of rural areas and things like this. Just remember this data so that you can start by using this data in introduction in GS mains answer. Okay, you can use like that. Now, these are the things mentioned in this article. Now, these type of indicators are crucial for assessing economic well-being, estimating poverty levels, and updating this consumer price index, because based on the expenditure survey, they found that certain category of commodities are very important. Accordingly, they can update CPI index, right? Now, we already discussed many times CPI index, who it releases, and all those things in our previous videos also, right? Now, this survey highlighted that sustained momentum in rural consumption, which can now outpace the urban growth rate slightly. That overall, this indicating that there is a decrease in the rural urban divide in terms of consumption expenditure. And this also indicates that there is accessibility of goods and services also because of the increasing expenditure in the rural areas. Okay, these are the things you have to understand from this article. Okay, now we will move to the next article. Now this article is saying that Odisha government identifies 40 lakh ghost beneficiaries in the recent survey of eKYC verification. Okay, now this is the context of the news. Now this article also saying that there is on an average 1 lakh to 1.5 lakh ghost beneficiaries that are found in every district in the process of this eKYC verification. Okay, this is the context. Okay, now this article is relevant from the GS paper 3 perspective in the context of public distribution system. See, this is the question that was asked in PYQ mains examination in 2022. What are the major challenges of public distribution system? Now, ghost beneficiaries is one of the challenges facing by the public distribution system. Okay. Now, this question also saying how it can be made effective and transparent. Now, this question is indicating the significance of this news article. Okay. Now, from the examination perspective, we have already discussed the challenges and measures for the revamping this public distribution system. But in this article, we particularly discuss what are the major reasons for ghost beneficiaries. Okay, what are the major reasons for these ghost beneficiaries in public distribution system, which can be important from the mains examination? Try to note the points. Okay, see, the existence of ghost beneficiaries in public distribution system in India, which can be attributed to several systematic administrative and social issues. Okay, now first of all, these ghost beneficiaries are those fictitious or duplicate entries which are used to siphon off this or sideline or divert the subsidized food grains or financial benefits. Now these are the things. These are the reason for the ghost beneficiary. Now what can be the reasons? The first and foremost reason can be the flawed beneficiary identification process. See, first of all, we use the data from the outdated census data for identification of the beneficiaries. Because of this use of old socioeconomic caste census data or incomplete household surveys, this lead to errors in the identification of eligible beneficiaries. That's one thing. Now, another important can be, fake entries or duplicate cards. The multiple entries for the same individual or inclusion of, non-existent persons due to lack of verification mechanism is also related to this flawed beneficiaries thing, right? Another important reason can be non-linkage of father. Okay. In areas, where Aadhaar integration is weak, these manual errors or deliberate tampering will result into these ghost entries. Right? This is another thing. Another important reason can be migration and urbanization. See, generally in India, this migration is not tracked. So there is no proper organized data that is about migration. That is how many people are migrating from one district to another district, one place to another place, for which purpose they are tracking. I mean, migrated or where they are located. But because of this, there is mismatch between the delivery of this PDS. So beneficiaries migrating from rural to urban areas or between the states, are not effectively tracked. Now this leaves scope for their ration cards to be misused in their absence in the native place. Like things like that are happening. Another important thing is failure to update the list. Fail to update. See, ration card database are not regularly updated. For example, there are some people who may died, or there are some people who are divided their family. That means changes in the family structure. Okay, there are people migrated. So this lead to there are certain inactive cards also there. So this is also one of the problem. Another important problem can be lack of proper digitalization and transparency. First of all, because of the lack of digitalization in some areas, there is still a manual record keeping is still going on. For example, in states where PDS systems are still manual, this tampering and fabrication of records are very much easier. Okay, that's one thing. Another important thing is transparency. A poor implementation of this end-to-end digital tracking system also allows this fraudulent practices by the intermediaries, right? Next, corruption and middlemen. So it is being said that corruption is collusive in nature. That is, even officials and the people both are collaborated here. So corrupt officials and fair price of owners often deliberately maintain these ghost entries to divert the subsidized grains for the sale in the open market at higher prices. Now that is very much popular in the rural areas also. Now another important thing can be under this middleman is weak grievance system also. There is lack of robust monitoring and grievance redressal systems also, which allow such practices to continue unchecked, right? Another issue is issues with ration card verification. See, for issuance of ration card and all those things, there is no uniform standards at the national level. So because of this, there is non-uniform standards. Because of the non-uniform standards, different states have varied standards for issuing and verification ration cards. Now, these lead to discrepancies. Right. Another issue can be forgery of documents. Right. Fake documents are used to create fraudulent cards. Particularly in the states with lacking this regulatory mechanisms and all those things. Right. Next issue can be social and economic factors. See, because of the illiteracy and lack of awareness, many beneficiaries are unaware of their entitlements, that they are really statutorily entitled that they will get certain amount of rice and all those things. Certain disabled people don't know these things, so making them easy targets for the exploitation intermediaries. That's one way. Next, overlapping. Under this, we can say that there is overlapping of welfare schemes. For example, beneficiaries are enrolled in multiple schemes with similar objectives. This also may lead to sometimes duplications. Next, administrative and infrastructure gaps. Now, what does this mean? See, for example, if some beneficiaries have died, they are not properly deleted for so many years. Now their benefit is taken by some other person who are known this fact. So there is delayed deletion. Delayed deletion in the dead beneficiaries. Now this failure to come promptly deleting the names of this deceased individual from the beneficiaries also lead to this ghost beneficiaries, right? That may be misused by some other people by taking that cards. Another important thing is insufficient audits. Insufficient audits. For example, there is the irregular audits of the beneficiaries and fair price shops often allow these ghost beneficiaries to persist for a longer time. Okay, and it has been said that very rarely done any type of regular audits, at the local level. Now, weak technological integration is also one of the reasons, because of the inadequate use of this technology like POS, electronic point of sale devices, and biometric verification. Also, this one way. Right. And another important thing can be, which is not mentioned here, it can be like political patronage also. For example, it is being said that in various areas, they know the fake beneficiaries, but still no one, openly disclose them because of the political patronage and all those things. Now, these are the reasons. Now, try to remember these keywords because you can directly use in the answers also in mains examination, because PDS is topic mentioned in the syllabus and also repeatedly being asked in the mains examination, right? Now, we will move to the next article. Now, this article is saying that 22% rise in enrollment after smart classroom initiative. Now, this article is saying that, because of the smart classroom initiative, there is 22% increase in the overall school enrollment in the last 5 years. Now, this is as per the study conducted by the IIM Bangalore. Okay. Now, why these smart classroom initiatives were taken? Now, you may have heard about this smart cities mission. Okay, smart cities mission, is a scheme of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. This was started in 2015. Right now, what is the purpose of this scheme? The purpose of the scheme is that to provide the basic infrastructure in the urban areas so that this lead to increase in the quality of life in the urban areas, especially. Okay. Now, one of the initiative under this process of improving quality of life is providing quality education, which can be facilitated by providing the smart classrooms. Okay. Now, under this smart cities mission, government launched around 9,000 smart classrooms in over 2,300 government school across the 71 cities. Now, this is the context of the news. Okay. Now, this article mentions certain data regarding the state-wise implementation. Now, this article is saying that around 80 smart classroom projects were implemented in Karnataka, around 53 in Rajasthan and Tamil Nadu, 23, something like that. Which data is, I think, not much important from the examination perspective. But the important thing is that the data that is mentioned. Now, why it is important? See, in GS paper 2, education is the direct syllabus topic, right? Now, questions are also being directly asking regarding the challenges in primary education, what are the measures, and things like that. In GS paper 1 also, there are questions about urban development. Okay, in GS paper 1, previously there is a question called smart cities need to be supported by the smart villages for ensuring holistic development. So in that case, schemes like the smart cities or data that is mentioned, that is 22% rise and things like that, are very important from the examination perspective. Okay, this article is saying that because of the this induction of the smart classroom, there is increase in the attendance of the students. First thing, Next, their learning experience are improved because now using the smart boards and all these things, visually appealing, concepts are explained in very easy way. Now this also is a comfort of the teacher also. They need not to write on the board and all those things. They can, on the demand, they can explain the difficult concepts in an understandable manner and things like that through, videos and all. That's what the, advantages that is mentioned. Now, as a part of this program also, this article is saying that around digital library studies, around 7,000 digital library seats, significantly benefiting the students in improving the digital literacy also. Right? Under this, digital libraries are also created. Okay. Now remember these concepts of digital library, smart boards and all those things, smart classrooms, which you can use as a measures if at all asked in the mains examination, the education as a concept, okay, especially school education. Okay, that's what this article is saying. This article also saying that not just digital libraries, for example, digital free resources also for preparation of competitive exams and all those things. Okay. Another important mention in this article is that there is government and institutional and academic collaboration that happened in this. Okay, 29 premier institutions, have conducted this impact assessment studies, especially in urban areas regarding these type of smart classrooms and all those things. Okay, these are the things. For example, you can use this collaboration as an example in GS paper 2, especially collaboration between public and private agencies or collaboration between government and industries and things like that. Okay, this is what overall mentioned in this article. You have to know. Okay, don't just read and forget. Just remember some of the data so that you can use in your introduction. For example, it is being said that smart class initiative lead to 22% rise in enrollment in the school. Hence, the smart technology integration found relevant these days, and you can use like that. Okay, things like that. Now we will move to the next article. Now this article is saying that mostly talking about this marginalization faced by the people, especially because of the caste, in the process of education, employment, especially by the vulnerable sections. Now, this is the context of the name. Now, this article is important, especially in the syllabus terms of JS1 and JS2, because in JS1 questions are directly asking about the caste, that is whether caste is static or fluid, things like that. How caste is affecting the life choices and life chances. For example, caste and education, caste and social mobility, right? In GS paper 2, there are concept of vulnerable sections such as scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. The lists are also comes under this. Next, in GS paper 2, as this question is talking about education, especially discrimination in higher education institutions. Hence, this article is also relevant from the perspective of GS paper 2, higher education thing, right? Now, from the perspective of this article and from the perspective of examination, we will see the challenges mentioned in this article, especially regarding the caste as a term or caste as a centrality. Okay. Now, this article is saying that now recently we have seen a case that a Dalit student got seat in IIT Dhanbad, but because of his inability to pay the fee in time of that is around 17,000 500, he was not able to get the seat. Later, when he went to the Supreme Court invoked this Article 142. That is the article that can be invoked to do the complete justice, right? Okay, to grant him admission. Now, this news or this incident highlight the financial challenges faced by the marginalized community. Okay, that is what saying this article. Now, this article mentioned that there are certain challenges faced by the Dalit students or backward students at various levels, especially regarding the education and employment. Okay. The first and foremost challenge, faced or mentioned in this article is about financial barriers in the higher education institution. It is because there is increase in, tuition fee. Now, this article itself is saying that there is significant increase in the fees at IITs, IIMs, and central universities. For instance, for it is saying that, tuition fees in IITs is raised by 200%. Now, it is being said that it is raised from 90,000 to 3 lakhs per year, right? And there is 30% rise in IIM Lucknow, 5% in IIM Ahmedabad, things like that. This is even IIT Delhi, it is being said that the fees is doubled, in 2020 to 2023. Now, impact of this thing is that because of the rising cost, it prevent marginalized students, even though they have this, ranks in the competitive exams, from accessing these prestigious institutions. Okay, even though they have ranks from these prestigious institutions, because of the rising cost, this prevents their entry into these institutions. That's what this article is saying. Another important thing is dropout rates. Now, this article also mentioned that over the past 5 years, it has been said around 13,500. Okay, around 13,500 students were dropped. Okay, most of the students are from the SC, ST, and OBC communities, and most of them are dropped from the central universities, IITs, and IIMs. And financial, strain and systematic discrimination is one of the major causes for this dropout. That is what this article is saying. That is, discrimination and financial strain are one of the major reasons for this dropout. Okay. Now, this article also mentioned that from the data of this Human Resources and Development Ministry, around 2,400 dropouts from IITs are primarily from these marginalized groups. Okay. Next important thing is that caste-based inequalities at various levels of this institution. For example, at first level, you can say that at faculty positions. Now, this article itself is saying that 95% of the faculties in these institutions of IITs and IIMs are held by the upper caste. Okay, this also creates inferiority and superiority, complex. Now, SC, ST, OBC faculty representation is disproportionately low. Now, as per this article. Now, another important discrimination can be seen in terms of discrimination in the institution itself, that is in the college premises itself. Now, there are allegedly, seen instances of suicides in recently in prestigious institutes also in IITs. Dalit students, face social discrimination, isolation, and harassment. This over time, can lead to mental health challenges, and in some cases, an extreme step can be taken like suicide also, which often reported in the newspaper recent times. At the work level, also, you know that at the outside in informal work, 92% of marginalized communities. Now, this reflects that there is a continued, nexus between economic marginalization and social marginalization or social exclusion in terms of the caste. Okay, there is a nexus. That is what this article is saying. This article also mentioned about some structural challenges also. Now, what can be the structural challenges? Structural challenges majorly about poverty, discrimination, and all those things. Okay. This article is saying that Dalit students, struggle with poverty, social discrimination, and even caste prejudice. Now, this creates barriers in integrating with the peers also and achieving academic success in the process. For example, a Delhi student in the campus may not, properly integrate with other students because of the, easily identifiable rank, caste status and all those things. Now, this creates a sense of anxiety also and presence of others, the feeling of others, and this creates isolation. This is one of the structural challenges or behavioral challenges, you can say. Now, this article just said that over the 7 years in the last, around 122 cases of student suicides are seen in terms of in IITs and IIMs. Now, this underscores that there is an emotional and financial pressures, faced by the students, in these institutions. Another important challenge that, highlighted by this article is, employment challenges. Now, it is means that there is high unemployment rates in India, Indian youth especially. Now, even in the prestigious institution, now this article is saying that there is an RTI application filed in 2024, which revealed that, around 38% of IIT, around 38% of IIT graduates remain unplaced. Now, imagine the situation of the students of marginalized sections, especially, and also the from marginalized sections, and that too from the colleges of unprivileged colleges or unrecognized institutions. Now, their situation is very worse. Now, that is what this article is saying. Okay. And overall, this article is saying that we need a reforms in the form of financial aid. Though there are certain financial aids that are giving to the higher education institutions, such as Vidya Lakshmi scheme and all those things, but that are insufficient to address this rising fees. And next, this article is saying that the first suggestion is financial aid. And second suggestion is the article saying about inclusive policies. Now, why inclusive policies? Just now we mentioned that about faculty's position and all. Now, this article is saying that there is a diversity in the faculty that is required, so that students also feel very confident, safe, discrimination-free environment is there. Now, another important thing is about the systemic changes. Systemic changes mean caste-based disparities in education should be removed. Employment and social integration also need to be there. Now, these are the things that are mentioned in this article. Okay, try to use this news that is or the fact that I mentioned in this one. Don't just forget this. For example, let's say dropouts are 13,500. Okay, 95% of faculty are from upper caste. Okay, 38% of IITs are unplaced. Now, these are the facts that you have to remember and just put it in the answers of the in GS paper 2 or wherever it is asked. Okay, that's how you have to use the news. Okay, don't just blindly read. Now we will move to the next article. Now, this article is saying that current account deficit is in quarter 2 but may double in quarter 3. Now, what is the context of the news? Now, recently it has been said that India's current account deficit for the quarter 2 of 2024-2025 is slightly decreased to 11.2 billion. $11.2 billion. Now, this is 1.2% of GDP. Okay, compared to the 11.3 in the same period last year. That means there is a decrease in the current account deficit in this month. Now, from the examination perspective, I want you to remember this 1.2% of GDP. Why? Because previously UPS asked that percentage of India's exports in the world exports and things like that in 2023 exam. No, that's why I'm saying tomorrow UPS may ask that India's current account deficit is around 5% of GDP, which is a wrong statement. No, remember that is around 1.2% of GDP. Okay, if you know around that there is 1.2 to 1.3 something like that, you can easily eliminate that option. Okay, that's the first thing. Okay, now what is mentioned in this article? Now this article is saying that merchandise trade deficit increased to around $75 billion from the $64 billion. Now, this is because of the higher imports compared to the exports. Now, this is the first thing. Okay, there is increasing the merchandise trade deficit. Now, what is meant by the merchandise trade deficit? See, merchandise trade deficit means that it is a trade in goods. That's the first thing. Okay. Okay. Just now he mentioned that to understand that current account deficit, you have to know first of all what is there in the current account. Okay. In current account, we have trade in goods, trade in services, net income from abroad. Net income is what factors of income. It can be profit. Profit means, for example, someone made investment in foreign assets and things like that. They get some profit. That's what the here. Okay, the investment that they made in the foreign country will comes under this capital account. Okay, but the profit from that investment is coming under the current account. That's the first thing. Next, interest. For example, if someone is or some institution given loan to some foreign country, that loan is coming under the capital account, but the interest on that loan is coming under the current account. Okay, things like dividend. Okay, all this comes under this net factor income or net income from abroad. Okay, next, current transfer. Now this includes gifts, remittances. For example, you know that around 3% of the GDP, remittances are accounted for 3% of the GDP, significantly from Indian diaspora. Now, this also comes under this current transfers. Now, these are the components of current account. For example, among these things, now trade in services is most of the times is positive in India. For example, because India is majorly contributing to services. It can be IT services, it can be tourism, all those things. Okay, hospitality. And trade in goods is most of the times deficit in nature because we import more goods than exports. Now, that based on these values and all this fluctuates. Current account deficit most of the times fluctuates. Okay, now this current account deficit, why I'm saying this important from the examination perspective. If you see this PVQ, this is just one question I have taken. There are multiple questions that are repeated, regarding the current account deficit. Now, this question is saying that consider the following actions which the government can take, that can help in reducing the current account deficit. Okay, you can, in a simple way that you can remember is that if currency is coming into India, that is positive. If going outside India, that is negative. Okay, if more amount of currency is coming, that is current account is positive, right? If more number is going out, more number of currency is going out, that means current account negative. Okay, in that way just you have to remember, so that now you can answer this question. Now this article is saying that devaluing the domestic currency, yes, this is true. Devaluing the domestic currency help in reducing the current account deficit. How? See, if you devalue the domestic currency, that means that Indian goods are more affordable in the foreign countries. Now, Indian goods are more affordable. That means Indian goods become competitive. Hence, exports from India will increase. If exports increase, more number of forex reserves will come to India. Hence, current account deficit will reduce. In that way, this statement is true. Next, reduction in export subsidy. Now, this is wrong statement. Why this is wrong? See, generally, if you reduce the export subsidy, exports will be reduced. If exports will be reduced, your forex reserves will also be reduced. Hence, this is not a step that can be taken to reduce the current account deficit. Next option is adopting the suitable policies which attract greater FDI and more funds from the FIIs. Okay. If you see the statement, now this is true because attracting FDI and FI will increase the forex reserves. Now this can also help in reducing the current account deficit over the long term. Right? Hence this is also correct statement. Now answer is 1 and 3D. Okay. Now from the examination perspective, understand the components of this current account, and I will explain in diagrammatic format also now. Now see this diagram. Just now I mentioned that current account deficit. Now current account deficit is nothing but this is the current account. Okay. Now overall balance of payment has two accounts, current account and capital account. Now just now I mentioned about this net income. See, comes under the first of all, remember that on a current account there are two components, that is visible and invisible. Now visible things are mostly goods. Now balance of invisible is mostly services. Just now I mentioned about some education services or health services. For example, let's say in India there is medical tourism is very famous in India. That is also comes under services. Income means just now I mentioned that if there is an investment, you will get profit. If there is any loan, you will get interest. Okay, you will get dividend. Though you invested money, loan amounts are comes under the capital account. The profit or interest we are getting on these type of things are coming under the invisible, current account. Okay. Remittances, I said transfers means remittances, donations, gifts. Okay. Now, these are the things you have to remember. Just remember the components because UPSC is asking that which of the following component comes under which of the following, right? Now, capital account, remember it comes under the investments such as FDI, FII, loans such as it may be loans taken by the government or external commercial borrowings or NRA bank deposits. Also comes under this capital account. Okay. Now, mostly goods are the visible. Okay. These are the things. Now, that's all from today. These are the things you have to minimum that I have to know from the prelims perspective. Okay. Thank you. Have a nice day.